do a whole bunch of different things. Oh, hey, recording in progress. There we go. So different things that I do in VCASS, from customer success, questions and answers, presentations. I go to customer sites and I do implementations. So there's a lot of different things that I do. And one of the fun things I get to do is I get to see a lot of cool things at different organizations, and then I get to talk about them, the ones that I can talk about at least, and share those experiences and share different things that I've learned throughout my years. And I haven't been around forever, of course, but I've been around for a couple of years here. A little bit about VCASS itself. It was originally created by a manufacturing company in 2011. It used to be called VIF, Visual Information Finder. VCASS itself is a digital work instruction solution. You'll see a little bit of that today, but of course we'll talk about the reduction in tribal knowledge and how to train up your workforce in the most efficient way. We're going to talk about that, but we'll also talk a little bit about VCASS. So used to be called VIF, Visual Information Finder. Grew, it evolved in 2011. We broke off into our own company, still a sister company with the main facility, the main organization. But VCASS was developed for a lot of different reasons. VCASS was developed for the reduction of defects in areas. It was developed for decrease in training time. It was developed to help and support with traceability of different items, tracking and tracing of information. So it's a lot of things it was actually developed for. What does VCASS do? You can create work instructions. Digital work instruction solution is like the core of everything. So being able to easily create and maintain instructions and processes. Standardizing on those processes and having an easy way to create and maintain them is going to save you time. It's going to save you money. And in a digital format, you got a lot of cool features, and we'll talk about some of them today. But we do the work instructions. There's data collection that you can do as well. So if you want to track and trace information, if you have measurements, quality checklists, control plans, any of that stuff, you can set that stuff up within the system as well. Wouldn't be a digital system if it didn't connect to other stuff. So of course we can connect to other enterprise solutions and systems, so everything could talk. And this is our IIoT Industry 4.0, type items. And then there's also add-ons for other devices like torque wrenches and things like that. Just so you know a little bit about what we do. But what we're really going to talk about today is the human element of the facilities and the organizations. Every facility has a human element, and you have operators and you have content creators, and they have different needs. So operators are going to need a few different things. Operators are going to need to be trained and cross-trained on items, or have the ability to easily be trained or cross-trained on different activities. They need a standardized up-to-date process to follow, not just something that's in a binder somewhere that hasn't been looked at in 6 months, and maybe it's good, maybe it's not. That never works. They need an up-to-date standardized process to follow. And they need something that's actually going to be easy to use and intuitive. You can't have a system that is going to be a pain to use, because then somebody's going to go, I'm just not going to use it. In addition to that, you also have needs for content creators. You have engineers out there, you have technical writers, you have different personnel that have to create and maintain these processes. The content is only as good as what we create. And if the content takes forever to create or maintain, if the content takes time or money in order to print in color or laminate or any of that, it's time wasters. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But content creators need easy ways to create and maintain processes. They need easy ways to collect relevant data and information. And they need an easy way to manage access to the different processes. Time wasters. I always like this slide here. So what are the time wasters that you could be talking about? We're still talking about the human element here, right? So in a scenario, maybe I'm working in a facility and I have to grab a work instruction. I'll use something from my past life, right? So I used to work on Blackhawks. I was a mechanic for Blackhawks in the Army. And There are technical manuals. There's big books and big binders, technical manuals. There used to be. Now they're all digital, but there used to be big books and binders and technical manuals for all the different processes for a helicopter. Maintenance manuals, right? So what you would do is you would say, I need to do this process. So you'd walk over to where all the books are kept, because they're kept somewhere in a quote unquote centralized location. And then you go over and you grab the book you want and you flip through it and you find the right chapter and you find the right page and you have the book, and then you carry that book out to wherever the helicopter is, because it's sometimes maybe in the hangar, sometimes maybe it's out in the airfield somewhere. So you walk out there and you slap the book down and maybe you look at it, maybe you don't. Right. So what did I do there? I had time that I took to locate the binder. I had time to locate the steps in the process. I had time to transport the actual instructions out to where I was working. So you have all this time that you are spending and expending, all this energy you're expending in order to do this. Hunting for instructions. Location and ergonomics are very important. Nowadays, I haven't been, mind you, I haven't been in the Army in like 10 years. So maybe things have gotten even better, right? But when I was getting out of the military, they started going into a digital format where all the manuals were on the computers. So you'd have a computer and you'd have a computer out in the aircraft and you'd flip that up and you'd go through the stuff, which was a better way, but not the best way, mind you. Content creators, maybe they're using systems that aren't designed for instructions. You have to really look at your processes and say, is this easy to maintain? Is this easy to create? Or is this just a pain? And I'm just wasting so much time trying to build instructions in this format or this software. So there's a lot of different systems. There's a lot of different software out there that can be used to create instructions. Is it the best way? Is there a better way? And then printing a paper. Paper is always a thing. Paper is, was used to be kind of the standard for everything. And you print out things in paper. But the problem with paper is, and I actually did this in another one of my webinars, paper, especially if you're working with chemicals or anything, or you have to transport the binder somewhere, you have risk of the binder getting damaged. You have risk of pages getting ripped out of the binder. You have risk of people writing on the binder and not telling you updates. You have risk that something's going to happen. Or you have risk that you are an ISO controlled company and you have to make sure that it is every work instruction, their process that you have is completely up to date and version controlled. And there's an old version of something in a binder somewhere. So paper is, one of those things where we used to have everything in binders, but when you really have to get down to printing out items, I have a typo, let me reprint that. Let me laminate things. Let me print out in color because it's going to be easier for the operators to see. These are items that can be time wasters right here, and money wasters too, honestly. So there's this concept we have here at VCASS, the disconnected worker and the connected worker. So we have challenges of the disconnected worker. Disconnected worker has some documentation that perhaps is outdated or hard to control. And in this case, if the documentation is hard to control or it's outdated, operator's not going to use it. Why would I use it? It's out of date. I already know what's going on. It's in my head, right? I know the best way to do things. I've been doing it for however many years, and I don't need your work instructions or your paper binder that's 6 months old. Maybe the instructions are difficult to understand. I've seen this a few different times where, and work instructions themselves, they've evolved, right, over time. They used to be, back in the old days, kind of like the job instruction breakdown, where you would say, you're doing this. The reason you're doing this is because of this. The critical point to all of this is this, and this is your process. Like, you'd have all this stuff down on paper, and all that stuff is great, but is it needed? And are you going to confuse people with it? Is it needed all the time for all your standard processes? You start putting too many words on paper, you do things like that, you might confuse people. And one of the things that you may run into as well is the disconnect between the shop floor and the content creators. I don't know how many times I walked out to the shop floor for a company and talked to somebody and they said, oh, we don't do it this way anymore. Why don't you do it that way anymore? Oh, we changed it like 6 months ago. Well, why didn't you tell anybody? So documentation, maybe it's difficult to understand, time consuming to create and maintain. We talked about that. Maybe it's not really accessible. Maybe if I have to go hunt something down, if I go, and I've done this before too, those binders I was telling you about for the military there, I would go and look for a binder and somebody would already have that binder. They would have it over at another helicopter. I'd have to go find them. So now I'm taking extra time, go find the person with the binder with the work instruction. Or do I just say, don't need that. I know what I'm doing on my helicopter, right? And risk that. It was really important for us to use the instructions on that stuff, by the way. So we're going to talk about this disconnected worker, and we're talking about some of the different risks here that we have. So we talk about paper documentation. We're going to talk about these key terms, the tribal knowledge and the brain drain / human capital flight. So these are different items right here. Tribal knowledge is an important one because tribal knowledge is when the operators think that they have the best process, but they know the best process and they are the most valuable player because they know the best process and it's all in their head. So it's valuable information. My way is better. I think my way is better, even though I have no clue if there's a better way to do it. My way is the best way. I know it. My way is the best way. And that'll give people a sense of job security. But what they're really doing is they're hurting the organization because they have all that information in their head. You need to document that. Reasons you need to document that is because one, you want to know how the operators are performing the work. And then two, you want to actually see the process so you can improve it. So if you document all the process that the operator is doing, maybe operator A is doing something different than operator B. And if that's the case, you can look at both those processes and say operator B's way is more efficient, or neither of them is more efficient. This is the most efficient way. And I know that because I have the process documented and everything the operators are doing is written down somewhere. It's documented somewhere. So that tribal knowledge is something that is in the operators' heads, and you want to get that stuff out and you want to get it down into some sort of documentation in order to assess, analyze, and make sure that that is the best way, the most efficient way to perform that task. Brain drain and human capital flight. I worked for a company, had a operator on a drill press, and this guy was around forever and a day. This guy was around, and he knew every single job that went through the place. And then one day he was going to retire. And the company went, oh crap, this person's going to retire. He's going to take all that knowledge, all that experience with him. We don't have anything documented for this guy. What are we going to do? And this is one of the situations and one of the positions you don't want to be in. You don't want to be in a position where you get to that, where somebody is going to get, and it could be retirement. It could be that somebody is just sick. Somebody gets hurt. I mean, even in the day and age we're in now, what are the chances that somebody might have a COVID scare and is quarantined for 10 days or whatever, right? In the day and age we're in now, even if it's short-term flight, where it's a sickness and illness or, pandemic related or something, what are you going to do? Are you going to have something there or someone there that can pick up that slack? Is your quality going to lapse because that person knows everything and you don't have anything documented? This is also, this brain drain and human capital flight also ties in with operator training. And operator training is going to be very important because you want an easy way to train operators. One of the things I like to do with VCAS is I like to create a process. I go down to an organization, somebody that's interested in using VCAS. I go out there and I create a process. And then I go out and I review it with the operator, the expert, and I say, okay, expert, let's make some comments and let's make some updates. And then after I do that, I tell whoever I'm working with, I say, go grab somebody from another department, grab somebody from the office and come down here and have them build this thing and see if they can use this work instruction. And it's a really interesting exercise, and you don't have to do it with just VCAS, of course. You could do it with anything, but it's a really interesting and a really good exercise. Can the operator follow the process? You know, that's the first step right there. Can they interpret and follow the process correctly? Because if they can interpret and follow the process correctly, and then you can guide them, you're going to reduce that training time by leagues. And that's going to be an important thing as well. But you have to have something in place for that brain drain and capital flight. And that could be retirement. It could be terminations. It could be people going someplace else to greener pastures. It could be a sickness or an injury or a pandemic related item. But you want to have something in place. And that's where that training element comes into play. So this is all the challenges, or a lot of the challenges, let's say, of the disconnected worker. So what does a connected worker have? The connected worker has everything they need right at their fingertips. Processes that are up to date and version controlled. Guidance on what to do in their process, a clear, concise instruction. They have something that's visual and easy to use. Maybe we have items that have real-time data collection where I can be collecting metrics as people are doing the work. Maybe there is a way of sending out messages for continuous improvement. Maybe there's a way of the operators providing feedback. And maybe there's one source of truth for the operators to follow. And I'm going to say one source of truth for the process, but honestly, the process really goes hand in hand with a drawing or other standard items that you have, you know, because you probably have some sort of standards at your organization, your facility, that are tied to specifications and torque specs or SOPs of that nature. Maybe you have drawings and standards and items, and then digital work instructions and digital processes are the best supplement to pull all those items together in one place. So the connected worker has everything at their fingertips, step-by-step process, links to drawings, access to all the different items they need to, the ability to enter in feedback, the ability to enter in measurements or items like that so quality can verify and validate that things are correct. That's what the connected worker has there. All right. I'd like to throw this slide in here just to talk a little bit about logical first steps to take in something like this, because you're going to get to the point where you know, you might be saying, well, I have something already, or I don't have anything already. You know, I've gone to different organizations, and some of the organizations I went to just used drawings, and that was it. And I said, holy cow, do something. Even if you don't use us, do something. Just don't just use drawings and just go off of that. You know, other organizations are more ramped up, and they say, okay, we've got computers out on the shop floor, and we're using PDFs, and we have some stuff like that. And I, you know, okay, here's what we can do. So there's different levels of, you know, the integration, or different levels that different personnel are at, or different organizations are at. So this is one of those slides where if you're just looking to get started, or you want to assess what you have already, this is something that you can do, some logical first steps. You know, look at your current process and documentation, identify the improvements that you can make, identify the different departments that may be having issues or defects, and then look at and focus on those areas, right? What's the ease to create and maintain your processes? I love talking about creating and maintaining, because a lot of times we run into people with difficulties creating and maintaining processes. It takes too much time. Let's see if we can help you out with that. You know, some customers have told us, you know, we've cut their creation time in half. You know, so there's, and what I'm trying to say is there's better ways out there. We should always be looking for continuous improvement. There's always better ways to do things, and there's always a better way to do something. Create your processes, enhance your processes. There's always a better way. You know, and what are your immediate goals, and what are your goals for the future? You know, and we talked to a lot of different customers and potential customers about what are your goals? Oh, I'm just looking to digitize everything. I need an easy to read format for the operators to follow. And I just want them to use it for referencing and training. Okay. Oh, I want some data collection because I'm a medical. I have to work with medical devices. I need data collection and signatures and different things in the system. So that way I can track everything in a digital record that I can validate for medical purposes. Okay. Oh, I'm an enterprise company and I want to connect everything together. I want to communicate with my ERP. I want to push and pull data. I want to load stuff into VCAS, and then I want to execute work orders and operations in there. Okay. Now, what's your immediate goals? Identify those different ones, and everybody's going to be at like a different level of what they need. But you can identify the goals that you want to take immediately to get the best, bang for your buck. And then you can identify future goals. And then a requirements sheet is always an important thing to do. Requirement sheet is great. What are the requirements for the documentation? What are the requirements for any type of data collection? Different things like that. And I always like to say, you got to test out a whole bunch of different solutions out there to see the one that's going to work for you. We always say, we want VCAS to work for you and we want to be that for you. But how are you going to know unless you test out other solutions and then pick us, Let's see what else I've got here. I think we're pretty good on time so far. I haven't been looking at the attendees. Hopefully attendees are still, we're actually pretty good on the participants here. Good turnout. That's very cool. I'm going to talk a little bit about VCAS here, just a little bit. And then I'm going to show you little examples of software with the stuff that'll hopefully make your life easier. So we'll do that. So, another decision to make is, do you need something that's on the cloud, SaaS, or do you need something that is on premise, locally installed? A lot of times medical ITAR customers, you want something that's locally installed. You want something where you can put up the castle walls and you can block everything off from the internet and everything else, and then control and maintain it yourself. And then other customers might say, I want everything's on cloud now, right? So some other customers might say, well, I want a cloud solution. I want something that I can access anywhere, and I can sit at home and make work instructions if I want to. It's one of the cool things about the cloud solutions, right? With VCAS, you got both. You got both options there. My boss likes using this cartoon here, this next one, and I also enjoy it. So basically what this is saying is just do something, right? Depending on what level you're at, you might sit there and go, hey, we got some pretty good stuff right now. That's great. See if there's some improvements you can do. Or maybe you're the one sitting there going, hey, we're the ones that are using drawings. Well, maybe do something, right? Document something, do something, because the human element is going to be a huge important factor. It always is, always will be, the human element. So having items in place that are going to help with the training, that are going to reduce that tribal knowledge, are going to reduce that capital flight and that brain drain, those items are going to be very important for you. And some of this stuff, you don't want to run into it and not know what to do or not have something in place already, proactive instead of reactive. How many times do we hear about security issues or hacks or any of that stuff, and then security gets beefed up because something happened? Security gets beefed up, right? You want to have something before then. You want to put the walls up before then. You want to have the training in place before you need it. That's one of the important things. Let's talk a little bit about VCAS. I want to show you a little bit of the software. I want to talk just a little bit about VCAS here, and we will answer any questions that anybody has. So we have a solution here, digital work instruction solution. I told you a little bit about that. There's different levels. Like I was talking about, what's your immediate goal? Is your immediate goal being able to create a process with pictures, text, and video? Having automatic version control and having an easy way to view that on a computer or a tablet? That's what we call VCAS Lite. version control. I'll show you this stuff in the software too, so you can actually kind of see that. Maybe you need the data capture. Maybe you have traceability requirements. You can do that as well. So you'll have the ability to capture data. You'll have the ability to validate that data and that information. So if you want somebody to put a measurement in and then it's too high or too low, you could do things like that. If you say pass fail, maybe if it's a fail, I open up a non-conformance. So there's different things you can do in that case too. So if you have a requirement for traceability and you want to track all that information, you can do that with what we call VCAS Professional. And then we have the enterprise solution, which is all the integration and the connectivity. You want to talk with an ERP system. You want to create customized dashboards with data metrics. So you're pulling that data out of VCAS that's being collected and doing things with it, whether it be time data, quality data, any of that. You know, this is your pushing and pulling stuff out of VCAS method right here with VCAS Enterprise. So we have these main offerings of VCAS here where you can load jobs in, you can do different things like that. And we also have integration with some different tools. Couldn't talk about IIoT and all that without having integration with tools and systems and things, right? So we actually have some integration with some torque wrenches. So if you have to use torque wrenches, you can actually communicate with them with VCAS as well. And then we have a test bench integration. And then there's other forthcoming things, PLC integrations and things like that. We'll try to get our hand in just a little bit of everything here. And the goal and the target is as you're growing and evolving, we're growing and evolving, and you're becoming world-class solution. All right, that's the end of that thing. We got some good time here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, I'm going to show you some software, the software a little bit. So I'm going to show you the software, a little bit on that, and then we're going to go through questions and answers and all that fun stuff. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Let me do that. So let me stop sharing for a second. And then let me make sure that I'm sharing the right screen. Turn that down just a second. There we go. Okay. Hopefully that's better. Hopefully you can still hear me pretty good. Where is it? Right here, I think. I think that's going to be the one right there. Okay. So I just want to show you the software a little bit. And I want to talk about how the software looks and the version control and all that stuff and kind of just show you a little bit. And then after that, questions and answers, any questions you have, we'll answer them, go through some stuff, and go from there. Let me show you a couple different processes. So this is an example of, let's call it a VCAS light work instruction, right? So this is an operator view. This is something an operator would see where you'd have the ability to have a process, again, pictures, text, and video, and have a step-by-step type of process or procedure. So operator can access this on a laptop, on a computer workstation, can access it on a tablet, can access it a whole bunch of different ways using a whole bunch of different methods. So accessibility. Right, we talked about accessibility, we talked about ergonomics. You want to be able to access this immediately. You want to be able to go through the process easily. You want to be able to understand and interpret everything. So, and this is just a general process. This isn't anything like super crazy or anything like that. Somebody, oh, this is fun. It's fun. It's fun when your boss is calling you in the middle of a webinar. I'm just going to put that out there right now. It's fun when your boss calls you right in the middle of a webinar. Okay, back to the webinar now. Okay, that was Ryan, by the way, Kalina. If you want to go yell at him, you can. All right. So we have our instruction, our process, and we can advance through our process and show our step-by-step here. Pictures, text, and video. This one has mostly pictures and text in it. This is what we consider more of a VCAS light work instruction. By that, I mean, we're not doing a lot of data collection. This is more that step-by-step process with everything in it. So we can advance through our process. We may see some interactive items in this though. We may see some notification alerts or some cautionary notes. I like using these alerts for a bunch of different things. There's a bunch of cool stuff you can do and add to the system here. And at the very least, what I'd like you to do is get some ideas on things that should be in the system. So we have these notification alerts, and I like to use these for, cautionary notes or saying, hey, caution, part contains lead, no grinding. Don't blend this or grind this. It contains lead or something of that nature you can do. And as we're going through and advancing through our process, and it could be by hitting keyboard and mouse, I'm kind of swiping through the stuff to simulate like a tablet use here. You've got your step-by-step process. And this is more VCAS Lite training where, I can go forward, I can go back through and I can say, oh, let me look at this. Okay, let me go up here and look at this. Let me go over here a little bit. And the level of interaction with the computer and the instruction itself is completely up to you. You might be a customer that says, I want people to reference this and go through it a little bit, but they don't have to go through it every single time. That's absolutely fine. Use it the way you want to use it. But you still have the ability to go through it as many times as you want. You have the ability to see all the different details using additional pictures on a step, text and arrows, number droplets here, a whole bunch of different stuff. And then if you have continuous improvement ideas, you want a platform that's going to easily allow you to send a message. So then I could send a message to some certain group of personnel. And then I can say, oh, I have an idea. Switch steps 10 and 11 will make things faster. And that could get messaged and emailed out to different people. So this is more your VCAS Lite step-by-step process right here. Pictures and text, not a lot of video in that one. If you want something that is more data collection and you want to track some stuff or some work orders or anything like that, you can do that too. So this one is a work instruction that's the same, but we added more stuff to it. And this is, again, an operator view, something that you could see where I'm being prompted for information. So maybe I need to track work order numbers. Maybe I need to track serial numbers or lot numbers of paint or chemicals or something like that. If you have data collection requirements and you need a place to store everything, you could do that too. And you want a solution that's going to give you what you want, but also have the ability to expand and grow for later. So maybe you're starting off at a light level or a pro level or something, but we show you a little bit of everything here. And this is just an example of you want the solution to scale, and you want to be able to scale the solution to whatever your needs are going to be now and in the future. You can scan stuff in from a barcode here, but I'm just going to type a few things in. Thank you, Kalina, by the way, for yelling at Ryan for me. Okay, so in this one, we are tracking a work order number. We are tracking some times. You're going to see some times on the right-hand side here. So we're collecting some more efficiencies and some more time-based items and tracking work orders. And we have some different stuff going on here. So there is more collection of information going on. We have some additional buttons and stuff we can click on. We've got this bill of material item here. So if we want to show a BOM list, we can do that. You can also attach stuff. So if you just want to, you can have a BOM list. If you want to just attach a BOM and just kind of show it that way as a picture, you can do that. Or if you wanted to attach or link to different drawings, and this is what I was talking about when I was saying information right at your fingertips. So right at your fingertips, information right there for the operators, whether it be a spec sheet, whether it be a bill of material, whether it be a link to a supporting process, you want all the information right someplace easily for somebody to find. And somebody out there might say, I've got that for most of it. I've got a system that's kind of a hub for the operators and that has stuff in it. That's good. That is very good. One additional item we have here is some what we call pictograms. So if you want to have a standard library of icons show, different items, you can add stuff here. And then as the operator's going through step by step again, maybe in this case, the operator is actually following along with the process as it goes through because there is required information to be collected. And this is another example of some of that. Maybe I need to scan in some serial numbers with a barcode or say that an inspection passed or failed or some items like that. I'm actually going to do something on this one here. I'm actually going to say reject because I think it's going to open up non-conformance for me. So I did my visible defects. I hit reject. So this piece failed. I can hit save. Okay, please place part aside and fill out the nonconformity form. So this is part of the validation too, right? So one of the other things is you want the system to make your life easier by doing things for you. You know, as many poka-yokes as you can put into something you want to. So if you can automate a process and fill out a nonconformance automatically and tell the operator what to do, oh, it was a failed inspection and it was internal and it was, I'm going to say a rework and there was one affected. I'm just going to say that. Now, so if you want to be able to do that, you can. And it's more automated, more of an automated solution there. And I could have put in, you know, pass and continued on and gone through things there. And then one of the other things here is that we're recording everything, right? So along with your processes, you might want data. And if you want data, you can have data. With a system, just like VCAS here, you can collect time data and see how long operators are doing jobs. You can track work order information. You can track that quality data. You can send notifications out. You can have all that information in there, even your non-conformance reports or your serial numbers or any of that. One source of truth. This is tied in with that one source of truth. Everything's here. And then you can do things with that data. You can get it out through Excel. You can pull it out using the API and that enterprise side of things. You have ways of getting the information out and doing things with it, but it's all in one place for you. And if you ever need to look back at serial number, 254 and see who did the work and if it passed or failed because somehow it made it back on the line, you can take a look at that and you can find that record. It's another fun story I always like to talk about. I worked for a company and they did paint inspections, and they would do an inspection on this piece, and they would take the piece of paper and the test panel and everything, and they'd put it in a baggie and they'd throw it in a box, and then they put it in a corner of a room somewhere. So some random room had a box with a couple thousand pieces of paper with test inspections on it. And then the customer comes back and says, we had an issue with serial number 1050. Can you find me that inspection report? And there I was, no kidding, there I was in that random room, dumping out boxes of inspection sheets and baggies, looking for serial number 1050. There I was. True story. How much easier would it be if I could just type 1050 in here and find the record right away and give it to the customer or review the record? A heck of a lot easier that way. A couple more minutes and then I want us to leave some room for questions. So give me 1 minute here. I just want to show a little bit on the editing interface and then we will go through some different questions that we have or that you have, let's say. Typing on my keyboard. All right. Editing interface. You can edit and create content using a camera, using a tablet. Basically anything you want. We try to be as mobile friendly as we can. You have the ability to add your different pictures. You have the ability to add different bits of text and arrows and things, just like you're seeing here. So you can add a whole bunch of different stuff to create your process, just like this. And this is, I love talking about the digital work instruction side of things because, I mean, this is the core of the software. We do a lot more stuff like you saw, but this is the core of the software here. You're going to be able to easily create your process. Pictures worth 1,000 words or more. You can do that. Got to add words? You can definitely add words, right? Maybe you're multilingual. Maybe you hang out more on the Quebec side of things and you want to translate it in French. Easy translation into about 30 different languages right there. Show the instructions in the language of the operator's choice. Make life easier. That's what we try to do. So have the ability to add those pictures, text. You can upload videos too. I know I didn't show you any videos. I could show you a video, but you can upload videos in here as well. Pictures, text, tables, whole bunch of different stuff. Create your process. Add your different elements. your alerts and your attachments and your data collection points and all your stuff like that. SPC charts, add a whole bunch of stuff to it, or add nothing to it if you don't want to. And then you have the ability to create, you have the ability to view, and you have the ability to publish that instruction. Again, with your full version control in here. So I can click a button, I can see all the versions of my process right here. I have to make a copy of version 11 and do something to it. I can easily click a button and do that. This is the type of stuff you want. You want easy, intuitive type of stuff to use. I think I'm pretty good right there. And I think we're going to go over some questions now. So let's see if we have.
Thank you, Spiro.
Yep.
Yeah. Why don't I read out the question for you so everybody can hear? Great presentation. Thanks a lot. There is a question came in from Shmel Stein. Do you recommend having a revision history as part of an SOP?
Absolutely. Change logs, revision history is very important. You want to know, well, and this may tie in with what type of work you do, but I always like having a revision history. It's a very important part of things. If you have document A and document B that are very similar, but there's one change between document A and document B, how do you know which one's the correct one? What's the easiest way to identify what the correct document is for the operator to use? Because one means quality defects and one means good quality and a happy customer. You know, revision history, change logs, and revisioning or versioning of your processes is a very, very, very important part of things, because you want to show the operators the most relevant, up-to-date information, because that's when they're going to use the information, and that's when they're going to be more in tune to have that buy-in with the information and maybe give you more information back, like feedback. So I always recommend some type of versioning, some type of revision, some type of change log to your processes. You know, like we have the versioning in here that shows you all this. We have a document history that's kind of like a change log for this as well that ties in with this. So you'll have the ability to do that there. But I've seen where other customers that do things differently, and they have, you know, they just have it right on their document, right at the bottom or the top somewhere. They have that change log in that versioning. Who made the changes? And what did they change? And did somebody look over it or review it? You know, because sometimes you need some kind of approving authority to look over the process and approve it before it's deployed down to the floor. You know, so this is very important things here.
Yeah, thanks. I have a question myself. You got onto it a little bit better, or a little bit earlier in your presentation, where talking about like preparedness when you can start adopting this sort of platform or tool for manufacturing. What's the biggest barrier you see for companies? Is it their readiness, digital readiness?
There are a lot of different companies out there that we run into that are not ready for a solution like this. Not as many nowadays as we did before. I think more and more people are getting ready, but there's different barriers and different things to consider when you're looking at, especially like a digital tool. You know, we run into customers or potential customers in different organizations that manpower or person power is in factor, especially nowadays. Content creators are sometimes tough to come by, or people have to do multiple jobs. That could be affecting the speed of things. Infrastructure could be a thing as well that we run into, where you know, an organization may say, we have the personnel, we just we don't have that much deployed out on the shop floor as far as technology right now, so we need to ramp up on that. We need to identify if we're going to use Wi-Fi with laptops, or if we're going to cable up some computers or use tablets or what, you know. So an infrastructure / do you have any technology out on the shop floor? You know, and that's one thing with this too, I guess. You want to look for a system and a solution. Like this one runs off of a web browser, so you don't have to install anything on a computer, and you don't need anything resource heavy. So when you're if you have something pre-existing out there, chances are something like this system here could run on it, you know. But infrastructure and technology could also be an item. And there are different groups and organizations that are just out there just looking right now. You know, they're getting their feet a little wet. They're going through and seeing what's out there, but there is no plans right now to move forward with something, but they want to have everything ready and in line for when it's time to move forward.
And then kind of a follow-up with that question, assuming that a company is what you would call digital ready to your needs, how long would it take them to really start ramping up and using this? And what's a timeline?
That's an interesting question because a lot of customers want different things. You know, I would ask a couple questions. I'll give you an answer to that, of course, but I want to ask a couple questions back. One of the questions would be, you know, what are your goals, or how much of your organization are you going to deploy this in? Some customers say, I want it in this line. I have legacy stuff. We're not going to touch that legacy stuff. The new lines, we're going to put it in the new lines, and that's what we're going to do. Some customers say, we're using this specifically for this line and that's it. And then other customers say, we're going to deploy throughout the whole organization or whole facility. You know, so there's different levels of organization and deployment in something like this, a digital solution as well. Where do you want to identify to use it? Is it in your heavy data collection areas? Is it everywhere because you want that standardization everywhere? Let's see. So when I used to deploy this out into different departments, I would spend maybe about a week to go over and create what we call a golden sample or golden example. So I'd go out and I'd talk to the experts in the area. I would build one process. I would go over it in very much detail with the operator and the expert in the area and make sure that was absolutely perfect. After that, and everything was set up there, if I had to do anything for ergonomics or technology, I would set that stuff up. And then I would start continuing to build work instructions and build work instructions. So each department, you could spend a weekend to get everything set up and get what we call that golden sampler, that golden example set up. And then depending on your team size as well, you could be, because I was what was considered VCAS administrator at the time. So I had a team of 2 people under me. So I would create the standards for the area. I would go to a different department or a different area, and then my personnel would come in behind me and build up the library of instructions. So that's something as well, you know, so I'd spend about a week in each area and then go through and build everything up. People would build up stuff behind me. So it's fairly subjective to what you want to do.
Great. Here's another question came in on the chat. The user said, great presentation. Question about language translation. Does the operator have access to choose the language, or is it done at the admin level? I have a very diversified workforce, and this is a very interesting feature.
Well, within our system, when you create a user, you can select what we call work language, but it's primarily the language that the operator uses. So you create a user profile for that operator. You select the language that the operator will use. Now, once that operator logs in, they see everything in that language. There is still the ability to change languages. There's a setting up here. So, you know, I speak English, but then maybe one day I go, oh, I want to see everything in French. I can click on that. But by default, when you create a user in our system, you will designate the language they see everything in, but there is a toggle to change that later.
Okay, great. How are model options shown?
Options and variations of process. I think that's what you're talking about there. So we always,
that's not my question. Yeah, from Jeff Lucknow.
Yeah, so different variations of processes and options. There's different ways you can show that. And I actually have a couple examples of that I maybe will show you here. Okay. Fun story about me. I'll keep it short. I have a couple of kids. I've got a 5-year-old boy and I've got a 1-year-old little girl. And so one day I rated my 5-year-old's Legos and I built these work instructions on model variations. So these are just examples of these items. And I'll just start off with this one real quick. So one of the things you could do with a process is you can branch it out. You want to show the operator Depending on what you want to do, some customers or some organizations will want to build a generic process, and that generic process is going to be good enough for them. Other organizations are going to say, I want to show the detailed process for each variation in each process or each item. So this is more of a detailed type of view of this, where I have different variations of a model or a process, and then I'm going to be selecting different items. This example here, the operator is going to actually select which item they do. Okay, I want to put on the red hood, and then it's going to take them to the process to put on the red hood. So as the operator is selecting, I'm going to put on the black roof. Okay, I put on the black roof, and then I'm going to put on the red exhaust here. And then I'm going to put the wings on the car because I like to put the wings on the car. So there's my car build, my Lego car there. And so all the different variations are tied to this process, but as the operator selects, it's branching them out to that specific process. So you could do something like this if you have a custom build of an item. In addition to that, you could also link out to sub-assemblies or something of that nature if you needed to. So if you needed to link multiple processes together, you could do that. One other thing I did with my son's Legos is I made this thing for a configuration code. So you have your variations here, but then what I did is I set up different variation codes. And you could scan these in from a barcode, but then I say, I'm just going to pick one randomly. We're going to say that one there. And then when I do that, it's going to take me to that process. So it's going to be a black hood. It is going to be a red roof. It is going to be a black exhaust, and we're going to install wings on it. And there's that right there. So depending on how you want to do this and have this process set up, there's different ways of branching out to different models or different variations of items.
Excellent. Thank you. There was one statement, it's not really a question, I'll answer it myself. Yes, this presentation is being recorded, and I will share a link to view it with the registrants. You'll receive that probably not too long after. It's to make sure it's rendered. And that's it for today. Great presentation. If there's anybody with a last second question, we do have another minute, but there's anything else you wanted to add from your end, Asparos?
I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening to me talk this whole time. I appreciate it. Hopefully you learned something today. Hopefully you found this a little bit valuable. And any other questions you have, you can always reach out to us for anything that you need.
Great. Well, now that we're all done, I want you all to have a great day and look to the next NGen presentation. We always try to bring value and some great information for you. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.